Hi there and welcome to the world of chasing engagement, SEO, SEM, social, analytics and reporting. Thanks for joining us today everyone. We'll be working through some fantastic content. Some will only have time to touch on, some will go into a little more depth for you. But if you do have questions, please feel free to use the chat panel on the right side of your screen. We'll do our best to get to them at the end of the webinar. However, if we do run out of time, we will contact you directly afterwards to provide you with your answers. We'll also be recording today's discussion and we'll send this out to you along with the slides early next week. As a segue into today's discussion, we thought it pertinent to bring you back to the website maturity framework we all should be working towards. On our last webinar, Kickstart Your Website, and I'm actually going to use a little shameless plug here guys, sorry. It is available on demand from elcomcms.com. We introduced the website maturity model, which will actually should be seen on your screen now. In a snapshot, we understood that many of us have sites that have elements that sit across multiple maturity levels, and that as we head towards the engaging level, our site productivity, that is the awareness, the leads, and the revenue that it generates, increases. Underpinning all sites should be a solid content management system or digital platform, like the Elcom CMS of course, that allows you to mature as and when you and your company are ready to do so, without paying for features you don't need or aren't quite ready for. What we realized is that no matter where you sit in the maturity model, you still want people to engage with your site, or for some of us, we want people to know that it actually exists and to visit it. So in this session, we thought we'd invite some experts to come together and tell us some of the best ways to chase that engagement and to achieve it. What I'd like to do now is actually introduce our expert speakers. I'll be introducing you to Anthony and also to Adriano. Anthony is the Product Director here at Elcom Technology. He has over 10 years experience in the business, working with clients from government, corporate and not-for-profit sectors, helping them achieve engagement with both external and internal customers via websites, portals and intranets across multi-device platforms. And we're going to say a very big welcome and thank you to Adriano, who has kindly stepped in this week for Simon, who is unwell. I think we may have lucked out on that. Sorry, Simon. But Adriano brings an absolute wealth of SEO strategic advice and experience. What I'd like to do before we kick off, and I introduce Adriano to get started on the content, is make sure that actually everybody's awake. And I'd like to try and open up a poll, which hopefully it will work for me, guys. And get you guys just to let us know where you sit in terms of your experience and skill set with SEO. So if you jump in and have a look now, almost all of you have voted. And okay, I'm going to close that one off and share the results for you. Hopefully you can see them. So what we've got, 6% of you are sitting in the I have no idea basket. That's okay. There's plenty more out there. 63% say that you're a beginner. Okay, so that's really good. We've got some great stuff for you guys here today. And then also we've got 31% at intermediate. And it's interesting to see that there's 0% of you saying that you're advanced. I think that's really surprising. I think you'll be amazed at what you actually do know. But let's have a look and get started on the webinar. So Adriano, I might hand over to you to get us started.
Thanks, Brooke. Thanks everyone for joining today. So I'm going to start off with a quick SEO 101. This should be great for all the beginners out there. Basically, when you talk about SEO, you're looking at two key areas that you want to kind of focus on. The first one is on-page, so obviously your actual website, the content on your website, and the metadata. And that's looking at things like your title tags, your meta description, your heading tags, and the content on your site, as well as some advanced 301 redirects and duplicate URLs, and we'll go into that in depth. The other aspect of SEO, in addition to on-page, is your off-site. And that means basically the sites that are linking back to you, referencing you on the web. That's what's going to build your authority. It's one of the biggest signals for Google to let you know that your site's legitimate, and it's one of the biggest things actually going to push your ranks up. So we're going to take a look at the current SEO climate in relation to off-site SEO. We're going to look at link cleanup. That's a big thing happening now in the industry. And also the question of natural link building, which is a really hot topic topic now. How do you actually build links and not go against Google's guidelines? So we'll get started.
Adriana, it's Anthony here, everyone. Hope you're well. I just wanted to thank you also for coming in today and sharing your knowledge with us. And I just wanted to kind of step in and say that I'll also be kind of dovetailing into some of these upcoming SEO 101 bits and giving you a view of how a CMS should help you to ensure that you're adhering to kind of all of these basic SEO rules. So hope you don't mind me interrupting you every now and then.
No problem.
I might be doing that. Okay, so back to you.
Yeah, so we'll get started on the next slide with SEO title tags, and I think we'll start with Anthony just giving us a brief intro to what a title tag is and where it sits in relation to your CMS.
Okay, great. So technically a title tag is just a piece of HTML that identifies the name of the page. And on the current screen you can see that whenever you navigate to a page, you're going to actually see the title tag at the top of the browser. It will identify the page, and this is a really important attribute of the page. It informs people what the page is about. It's used for their bookmark. Anyone navigating the site with screen readers will be informed what the page title is through a screen reader. Search engines, of course, use this as the primary identifier for the page, and it helps them to understand what the page is all about. And as you can see on this page of Google search results, the title is what's presented, as the search result title. So they're really important.
Yeah. So to jump in from an SEO perspective, I guess title tag is going to be the most important ranking factor for Google. What you've got here is you've got about 65 to 70 characters to work with, and you want to include 1 to 3 of your most relevant keywords that you're trying to track on your page. So you can see here this Elcom example that they're really targeting enterprise web content management, and they've included that as a priority in their title tag. You want to keep repetition to a minimum, keep them short and sweet, and we're going to go to the next slide now and just have a look at some examples of title tags.
Yeah, I might just mention that on this screen I've actually just identified how a title tag is actually constructed.
Great.
First of all, the title tag is derived from your article attributes in the Elcom CMS, but really in any system they should provide you with the page title field as one of those metadata attributes for the page. So on the right top you can see the red square circling my page title. But then over on the left, the sites also have a name, and in Elcom CMS this is something you set in global site settings. Now with these two attributes, you can then get to shape how your title tags appear, and directly below those two boxes you can see we now give authors the ability to actually construct how the page title and site name should actually appear and what format they should appear in. And I think Adriana is just going to touch on best practice on the next slide on how you should actually construct this.
Absolutely. So what you've got there with the patterns of actually creating your page title is actually really useful for a large site. If you've got a small site, not a problem, create them all manually. But when your site gets huge, you really want to start using those patterns, and it's great if your CMS has that functionality. So we're just going to have a look at a quick example of a good title tag versus a pretty bad example. So we've got a theoretical website here called The Phone Shop, and they're selling blue and red phones in Sydney. So the first example here, we've got The Phone Shop, blue phone Sydney, pipe, red phone Sydney, pipe, best price guaranteed. Now that's gone over the limit of characters. It's too long. You've got keyword repetition happening. You've got your brand at the front, which you don't really want, and it's just too long. It's too diluted. So the second example, what you want to do is keep it short and sweet. So we've got blue and red phone Sydney, pipe, The Phone Shop. It depends on your branding and how you want to kind of spin it, but I tend to like to have your brand at the end of the title tag. That way you give full credence and full credit to your keywords. But if branding is a huge issue, you can have your brand at the front of the title tag.
So just on those title tags, you mentioned that it's kind of approximately 70 characters or less in an optimal title tag.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you mentioned that's measured by pixels, not characters. you want to just shed some light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the Google search results, they've got a limited amount of space to work with, but interestingly, it's not a direct character count. So longer letters like O's and W's are actually going to take up more space. So it's a rough guide. You're going to have to actually see how it looks in the search results to see whether it gets cut off. If you go for about 65 characters, you should be safe.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. You learn something new every day. So moving on, we have meta descriptions. Now, meta descriptions appear in search engine results. They're important. Don't confuse them with meta keywords. This is really the bit that describes your page. Now, there is a little bit of confusion sometimes when people enter their meta description, but it's definitely an important one, and you need to make sure you get it right. Adriana, did you want to mention?
Yeah. So from an SEO perspective, your meta description is not a ranking factor. So it's not actually going to push your ranks up. What it's there to do is actually encourage click-throughs. So take a look at it from the perspective of ad copy. You're really trying to encourage people to click through to your site. Include the keywords just so they get bolded. In these examples, you can see there's some bolded words. That's because people typed in those keywords. So it's definitely worth putting your keywords in. But what I do with your meta descriptions is get a good copywriter to write these up for you and just make them really enticing. You've got about 150 characters to work with here.
Okay, so where I was going with the confusion side to meta descriptions is that often there's confusion between a summary or a brief description of the content, which you can see currently on your screen, and the meta description. So we often find customers will happily enter the brief description but ignore the meta description. They're effectively doing the same thing, so we're now giving you the option to use your brief description as the meta description if you haven't populated your meta description. So it's just it's a little technique from our learnings and watching how our customers work with the product to ensure that the meta always contains relevant information. Of course, you can modify the brief description and the meta. You may wish to use the brief description for other purposes, such as providing a summary when you're displaying a list of articles. But quite often, it should be aligned with the meta description. This trend to kind of stuff the meta description is Adriano, it's something that Google is kind of looking for, and
it's old practice, old hat, and I don't want to move away from that. It's as I said, it's not a ranking factor, so there's no point. You want to use that really wisely and really effectively to help encourage click-throughs and look quite legitimate. And on that note, we have a tool. It's a completely free Chrome tool. So if you're using the Chrome web browser, this actually it doesn't affect your site. It just gives you a preview. Hypothetically, you can put in what your title tag you'd like to be, what your description would be, and it's going to give you a preview of how that's going to look in the search results. That's just a nifty little tool to do some initial work. So definitely check that out.
Okay, let's talk about headings, because that's obviously a really important aspect of SEO. The search engines certainly look at the keywords in the H1 tag, H2 tags. For those who are beginners and aren't familiar with these concepts, an H1 is simply the primary heading on the page, not to be confused with the page title, although often we see customers using the exact same text for both these fields, which, Adriano, do you have a comment on that, using the same text in your primary heading and your page title?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing to do in the world. Often your title and your H1 are going to be very similar. The difference there is that your H1 is actually shown on your page very obviously to users. So what you actually want to do with your H1s is make them a bit more readable, a bit more user-friendly. Still include your keywords, but make them read a bit better. So include some more conjunction words, and don't make them so just keyword stuff. Yeah, definitely something natural.
And of course, keep in mind that headings aren't just for search engines. Headings are for real people. When they come to your page, it's really important to show them that the structure of your page with a lot of clarity. So make sure that you have only a single H1. You can't have more than one H1. There's only got to be one.
Yep.
You're in breach of standards if you have multiple H1s on the page, and Google will know that. And then it's a natural hierarchy. H2 are your subheadings. H3 are your sub-subheadings. And it can go all the way down to H6 and 7, really. You can structure your page to a very low level. The important thing in a good CMS is just understanding how to actually apply headings. And you can see over on the right-hand side of this page, there's a screenshot of the drop-down that allows you to highlight any of your text and apply a style. So it's really important that you do this. We see often customers just kind of highlighting a heading and making it 16-point font and bold and thinking that's a nice heading. But it's really important to adhere to these styles and the HTML that should be used for your headings, because that is what the search engines will be looking at.
Yeah, get back to basics. Don't forget your very basic HTML structure, like Anthony said. It has to have the H1 tag or the H2 tag around it. And don't forget, exactly like you said, use the H1 once. It's basic HTML, so don't try and get too fancy with it.
Yep. And also, I might comment that often in the Elcom CMS, our templates contain the article name. Now, page title, if you don't fill it in, will derive from article name. So if you want to make them different, it's important to drop into the back end and actually differentiate between your page title and your article name, because it's article name that will become the H1 of the page if you're using a pre-baked template from the Elcom CMS.
Yeah, great technical point to look out for. And just to wrap up, in terms of H2s, from an SEO perspective, use them naturally. They're not a huge ranking factor. H1 is the most important. But if you do need to use H2s, go for it. Target some minor terms on your page, but it's not going to make you rank straight out. So moving on to creative content. We've got a little bit of a funny image up on the screen now. Hopefully you guys can see it. This was something I was discussing with Brooke yesterday about how content is becoming so ubiquitous. So many people are doing it. How do you cut through all the riffraff? So that's something, we're going to cover that in the next few slides. We're going to talk.
That doesn't look like riffraff to me, just by the way. But anyway.
So.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Let's get back to the picture here. So what are we looking at? The 4 levels of creative content.
4 levels of creative content. This is just something conceptual that I like to use to help me map out the different sort of tiers of content. So we're going to start at the bottom, outsourced content. That's your really low quality stuff that you might have gone to freelancer.com and you've just outsourced an article. You've said, please write an article. I don't care what the topic is. Or maybe you've given a really dry topic and it's just come back. It's cost you $15 and you're going to slap it on your site. It's probably not going to do much. Taking it up one notch is things that you've written in-house. You put a lot of effort into this. You're the expert. You know what you're talking about, but you've still you've just written something. It's probably just going to sit there on your site. Still better than outsourced, but not great. The next level up is a great resource that you've written. And this is starting to get towards content that is quality. It's something like a top 10 list of tools that people in your industry might use. Maybe it's the top 10 influencers in your industry. It's something really interesting and engaging that you'd actually want to read, and other people will too. And sort of the highest level that I look at for creative content is when there's external involvement. And what this means, as a great case in point, this webinar today, DEJAN SEO has been involved with Elcom. So just by the fact that we've hooked up with another company, doesn't matter how great the content is, it's going to get distributed by them. So we're actually leveraging off their brand. And you can do this in a number of ways. You don't even need the other people to be involved. You could write a top 10 list of the best contributors in your industry, the top influencers. Write this ego bait list and then email them and say, hey, look, I included you on this list. And they'll actually get engaged and they want to share it. So external involvement in your content is sort of the highest level that you want to aim for. And look, a great example here that our CEO, Dan, has actually been involved in. He interviewed a top influencer in the SEO industry. His name is Rand Fishkin. And so you can see here how engaging this is. There's a bunch of likes and tweets and Google +1s. The fact that he's involved someone else, he's leveraging off that brand. So it's not just going to be a piece of content that's going to sit there and no one's going to read. It's taken it to the next level.
Yeah, Adriana, I just wanted to say something on this point. Over the years, being involved in this industry and heavily involved in SEO, people have always asked me for the secret sauce. What is that little trick that they can do that can get them a higher rank? And every time I come back to content, and I just want to kind of really kind of emphasize what you're saying, is that the secret is actually great content. So don't underestimate it and invest in your content. Get it right, and you will have a lot of success on the web.
Absolutely. There's no substitute for quality. I know it's a very cliche, but there's no substitute for being real. So you have to just be honest with yourself. Is this really good content? Would I want to read this? And if you go by that rule and invest time and effort, you're going to be rewarded down the road. So moving on to on-site content. This can be really relevant to anyone with an e-commerce store. You're probably going to have something similar to this situation on the screen here where you've got a bunch of brands. What you want to watch out for from a content perspective here is actually making sure that you've got unique content on each of these pages. There's a concept called thin pages in SEO, and what that means is you've got a bunch of pages with little content, and Google's going to look at your site and think, why are all these pages here? So to kind of justify your brand pages, you want to flesh out a good amount of content. There's no hard and fast rule. The other thing you want to avoid is scraping content from the manufacturer's website. So if you've got a brand like Logan & Mason, don't just go to Logan & Mason and copy and paste their content. That's duplicate content. So definitely get content rewritten. Same goes for all your product pages. Go to the effort of getting this rewritten.
Okay, so let's touch on 301 redirects. Now, because of the changing nature of content, 301 redirects are an essential part of the SEO puzzle. Basically, in the real world, you're potentially deleting pages from your website, you're making them inactive, or you're moving them to different locations. Now, when a search engine knows where your page is and knows its URL and then arrives there and nothing's there, it'll effectively see an error page, and that may affect your rank because really there's no content on that page. So what 301 redirects give us is this ability to tell the search engines that this page has moved to a new location. These little, in the web there's lots of different codes. There's 404s, 301s, 200s. They all mean something different, but the 301 has become quite well known because it's what we use to tell search engines to redirect elsewhere. Now, when we redirect, you could either be redirecting to new content or even a catch-all page that says the content you were looking for no longer exists, it's been archived, but here are some other options. So you really need to think about how to kind of gracefully handle those situations. But a common issue is also page renaming. So let's say you decide on a new page title and a new title for your article. This kind of updates your URL so that you have a matching URL to your page title. And then users might have bookmarked the old link. And of course the search engine understands the old link, not the new link. So what a good CMS will do, like the Elcom CMS, if you look at your page, is it'll create aliases for any old links. So whenever you change a URL, it automatically adds an alias so that someone with a bookmark or a search engine looking for the page is automatically 301 redirected to the new location. The same would apply for a move page as opposed to a rename page. And if we just jump to the next slide, we also have the ability now to create a redirect location for an article that's been inactivated. And this is again a learning that we've seen in the way our customers use our system, whereby they have a page, they make it inactive, but really when a search engine arrives there, it's going to see nothing. So now we have this ability to say, anyone that comes to this old link, redirect them here.
Absolutely. So from an SEO perspective, I think you've covered it pretty much, Anthony, but what you're trying to do there is basically retain SEO value. If you have links going to a page and that page no longer exists, those links then point to nowhere. And as we talked about earlier, links give you authority. Links are Google's way of seeing if you have authority. So if a page no longer exists, make sure to 301 redirect it, and that's going to pass that link value along.
Okay, duplicate URLs are evil. Okay, so any digital marketer will tell you that their pet hate is going to be duplicate URLs. So basically what a duplicate URL is the same page that has multiple URLs. And in my example here, you can see a common problem with the home page, where someone can get to the home page through /home, home as an uppercase, home/home, index, or just as a slash, which is best practice. But for a variety of reasons, you can find yourselves in all sorts of bother because you've effectively got 4 or 5 URLs for the same piece of content. Now, where this gets really problematic is the fact that, firstly, Google is diluted. It sees a whole lot of different pages with the same content. Now, a good CMS will have something called a canonical URL, which will inform Google what the original page is. Because in Google's eyes, duplicate content's a really bad thing. It kind of tells it that you may be trying to game the system just by putting the same content out there so that it will be indexed and improve your rank. So you kind of helped with this canonical tag, but it's still a problem because, and this is the kind of main issue that frustrates your digital marketer, is that when it comes to looking at your analytics, it's going to attribute page visits to across each of these URLs. And your analytics package is potentially going to think that each of these is a different page. So when your boss says to you, how many visits to the home page, and you look up home, you'll see that there are 1,000 visits, and he'll say that's too low. And then you'll have to go trawling through analytics and realize, oh, people are going to index home, home, and home uppercase as well. And then you've got to kind of sit there and aggregate all the results, times this by 1,000 pages, and you can see it can be a really frustrating thing. So you need to seek out duplicate URLs and destroy them. They're evil. Okay, so there is one more thing. If we could just step back. The second last example on this page, home, home, is a common problem we see in the Elcom CMS. Customers create a folder called home, potentially, and then a page called home. And we've seen this occur in different areas, like Contact Us folder contains the Contact Us page. So again, you get Contact Us, Contact Us. Users can access in the Elcom CMS a folder URL at Contact Us or an article URL at Contact Us, Contact Us. Sorry to be sounding so repetitive here, but you can see the problem this causes. So what we've done to help you with this in the latest release, if you ever do create a duplicate URL, because you created folder name, article name, we will, on the server side, automatically redirect the user back to the folder level URL and only ever display the top level URL. So a big help to you there in terms of if you do accidentally create identically named folders and articles.
That's great. So just to give a quick brief overview of the current state of SEO, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this if you've been running a website for a while and doing any kind of SEO work. Basically, Google's getting really good at cracking down on low-quality linking and spam. 2013 was a huge year. They really ramped up their efforts. In May of last year, Google released the Penguin 2.0 update, which was just huge, and we saw a lot of traffic drop-off, like you're seeing on the screen here, where one day you had a large amount of traffic and the next day you had a trickle. So basically, we need to start moving towards more quality link building methods, and we're going to look at that in the next few slides. So look, if you do suspect yourself of being hit by a link cleanup, of being hit by an algorithm, what you want to do is actually go into some of the Moz algorithm tools, and there was a link in the last slide, and you can get that off the webinar, but it basically outlines the dates that the Google algorithms were released, And you can go into your analytics and look for lines when your ranks dropped off. Yeah, we'll move back to the slide. But you can look up, if you see that on the 22nd of May, Google released Penguin 2.0, and on the exact same day, your traffic just dropped off the radar, there's a pretty good chance that you were hit by a Penguin update. So if you suspect that, you're going to have to go towards probably a link cleanup campaign. And that involves going into your Google Webmaster Tools. If you don't have it, definitely get it. It's a free tool from Google. It'll allow you to look at links to your site. You can see if there's any manual actions that Google's given you. And from there, you'll be able to have a good idea of what you need to do. But it's a very in-depth topic, so definitely get some advice from an SEO. And just briefly, looking at safer link building, this is a very in-depth topic, but just to give you a brief overview, you want to start looking at how to reflect your real relationships online. So stop doing things that are a little bit spammy and you're doing en masse, and start looking for links that are legitimate. So we've got an example here where we're linking out to some partners. And that's a really legitimate way of building authority online because there is a reason there for a link. So if you're ever in doubt, refer to Google's guidelines. They'll give you a really good idea.
So Adriano, we've actually got a question that's based around this idea.
Okay.
Nadine is asking that one of her competitors is a link partner. Is this illegal with Google? When she says link partner, she means when suppliers sign up to their site, there is an option they can tick to be a link partner and exchange links.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, firstly, nothing's obviously illegal. It's Google's running their own show. Is it against their guidelines? From my belief, it actually is. So that's called a link exchange. So you really want to avoid that. They actually specifically outline that in their webmaster guidelines. So anything where you're kind of swapping links like that, you don't want to do it. So I would definitely look at reading up on the webmaster guidelines just so you're well informed. Do a Google search for link exchange, and you probably want to actually get out of that and look at a more natural way of linking to their sites. Hope that helps.
Yeah. Thanks, Adriana. Yeah.
So looking at SEM, this can be a great complement to your SEO efforts. There was actually a recent study done that showed that 80% of clicks when you run AdWords are incremental. So what that means is if you're already ranking for a keyword and you then run AdWords, you'll actually get up to 80% clicks on top of what you're already getting. So it's not going to cannibalize your organic rankings. So what you want to do is go and use the free keyword planner that Google provides. Go in there, type in some of your keywords, look at the average monthly searches, and look at engaging someone that's quite clued in on PPC. They'll really be able to help you to set up your campaign properly from the start.
Just a quick question that's come through that I think is useful based on what we just discussed a moment ago. Do you look at URLs? I kind of mentioned that people should seek them out and destroy them.
Yeah.
Well, one of our listeners has asked, how do you seek out duplicate URLs? Are there any tools that you could recommend that would help users?
Oh, for sure. So there's a free tool called the Screaming Frog SEO Spider. You can download that. You can get a free trial. And that's actually going to crawl your website for you. It's a desktop tool, but it will go on the web and crawl your website. And from that, you can actually look at URLs and sort by URLs, and that's going to give you duplicate URLs or very close URLs. So I definitely recommend that tool.
Great. Thanks, Adriana. Okay.
No worries.
Perfect. There's a tool for everything.
Yeah. So looking at just briefly on the quality score in relation to PPC, we're just going to brush over this as we're running a bit short on time. But quality score is basically a score given to you by Google for your PPC campaigns. And it's based off how good your landing pages are, how relevant your ad copy is, and this will increase over time. The cool thing about quality score is as that increases, your bid price will decrease. So once again, getting someone that's skilled in PPC is going to pay a huge benefit because they'll be able to get your quality score right up there.
Adriana, I think, sorry to jump in, I don't normally do that, but I think this is actually a really, really important point. So just for everyone out there, could you just say that one more time just so people understand, because, as a marketer, that bid price, that when you don't have a big budget, that has a big impact. So if there's things that can be done to help lower that, so you can get more out of your budget, it's important say exactly the same as you just did.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Google will give you guidelines. If you start using AdWords, even if you do it by yourself, they're going to give you tips to raise that quality score. Look at the documentation on quality score for sure. But once again, it comes down to how well your landing page matches the intent of the person clicking on the ad. So you've really got to get relevant ad copy, relevant landing pages, and when Google can see that is all matched up, your quality score will go up. So it's going to save you money in the long term. So it's really worth trying to get your quality score up there.
Yeah, I think with all of this stuff, really, it's never a box-ticking exercise, is it?
No.
You've really got to curate it and put effort into it and come up with meaningful content.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't just sort of flick a switch.
Whether it's your two-line ad or your title or the content of your page, isn't it? You've just got to be so creative to cut through.
Absolutely.
So we do have a question on what you just mentioned from Jessica. Can you please explain bid price?
Sure. Well, I'm more of an SEO guy, but I can give you a brief intro as far as what I know about it. Basically, a bid price is how much you're paying to get a click in Google Ads. So when you're trying to get ads in Google, you're competing against a lot of other people that are doing the same, and they're going to bid against you. And based off how kind of good your quality score is, how good your reputation is over time, Google will let you bid less but have the same position in the results. So it's basically you bidding against other people to get your ad shown. I hope that helps.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Adriana. Okay.
Just to wrap up PPC, the Google ads that show up above the search results aren't the only type of PPC. You've also got the Google Display Network, and that's where ads show on other people's sites that have volunteered to be a part of that. So when you see things like banner ads on websites that you're browsing, that can be the Google Display Network. And there's also other ad networks. You've got MSN, Yahoo, and many others that run their own ad networks. And a lot of clients get great results through those networks, and even better than the Google networks. Finally, you've got Google Shopping. If you're running an e-commerce store, this is going to allow you to actually push your products directly in the search results. So if you're in e-commerce, definitely look into that. And finally, retargeting. I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware of this, but basically when someone comes to visit your site, Google's going to then stalk them and follow them around the web, and they'll see your ad on every other website they go to. And this basically, it makes you seem a lot bigger than you are.
Yeah, it's quite freaky. When it first happened to me a few years ago, I thought that this particular organization had an enormous budget for marketing on the web, because wherever I went, I saw their ads. But this is retargeting, which was quite powerful. I did get an impression of their scale and reach.
Absolutely, and it's cost effective, so it's not actually as expensive as you might think.
Okay, so I thought I'd just touch on the actual PPC process and really mention again what I said a little bit earlier when I thought the slide was about to come up, which was it's not a box-ticking exercise. It's definitely something that needs a lot of activity. Very helpful to use experts in the field, and really to go through a process of planning, research, implementation, tracking, refining, and then repeating. And the key word there being repeat. We see a lot of customers that go in, dabble, set it up, and they set and forget. That's not going to work for you. You're really going to be, just throwing your dollars down the drain. You've really got to engage with the whole process in a cyclical fashion and keep monitoring and repeating this process.
Absolutely. That's a great point, yeah.
So we're going to touch on social media now and look at strategies for, driving traffic and engagement through social. Adriana, there's obviously a lot of debate in this space about what works and what doesn't. Is there really a return on investment? And also, does it really help your SEO? Often we see people thinking, well, I'll spend there because my SEO rank will go up. And also, what kind of marketing spend should be allocated to this overall? Obviously people nowadays understand they need help with SEO, they need help with PPC, but when it comes to social, I think people are unsure of the value?
Yeah, no, great questions. I guess I'll get stuck in on that first question that you asked, which is, is social going to actually boost your SEO rankings? And it's a question I get asked a lot. The simple answer is not directly. So basically, Google doesn't have the signals there strong enough to actually correlate your likes or likes on your posts to actually transfer that over to your rankings. The reason you do want to be on social in terms of SEO is that it has a really good indirect effect. Now, what I mean by that, I can explain through this diagram. You're going to start out with some quality content, as we talked about earlier, and you're going to publish that. What you're going to do after that is push it through your social networks where you've built up your followings. That's going to drive direct traffic back to your site. You're going to gain subscribers, your community is going to grow, your branding is going to grow. And if people find that content and they like it enough, they might actually link back to your site, and that directly affects your SEO. So there's all these kind of fringe benefits that you get from it. It's not this direct correlation to your rankings, but overall, I definitely recommend that you get involved with social. So a basic tenet of social, in addition to just being real and being engaging, is to actually post your own content. Once again, you're going to have that content produced, and it's going to have to be good. So you're going to have to start from the basics. But don't just be a reposter. We've got an example here on the screen where our CEO has posted some content on his personal profile, and he's linking back to the company website. That's exactly what you want to be doing. You want to be pushing traffic through from the social network back to your site.
Is that something you caught?
Yeah, that was just on the weekend. Yeah.
That is a big fish. I mean, if he was still alive, he'd flap them right over.
Might actually eat them, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe there used to be 3. So
you want us to target the big fish, huh?
Definitely target the big fish. So this should be your end goal when you're on social. Is look for those big influencers. That should be your end goal. Now, you're not going to get them straight away because if you're a nobody, they're not going to want to know you. So start small. Start with the smaller to medium fish. Start interacting with people that have a bit of pull. In the long term, though, be aiming to find those top influencers. And how you're going to find them? Some great tools out there. So we've got here Follow-A-Wonk. We've got Circle Count. Follow-A-Wonk is for Twitter. Circle Count is for Google+. So do some research. Search for the keywords relevant to your industry. And have it as a long-term goal to actually connect with these influencers.
Question here, maybe.
Oh, so there's a question there around sharing links. Does it matter if you use services such as Bitly for sharing your site links on social networks? And maybe you just want to explain what Bitly is.
Yeah, so Bitly is a URL shortening software, and it basically allows you to have much shorter URLs that are more readable. It's a great question. Most social networks will not pass link values, so they no-follow their links. So it's actually fine to use these shortened URLs. It's good for users. The other great benefit you get is often these URL shorteners will give you analytics as part of the service. So you can actually see and analyze the traffic that's coming through. So I would encourage you to use those shortening softwares.
So you mentioned no-follow. Do you want to just elaborate what that means?
Yeah. So because links give so much value, they pass what's called PageRank, which is basically passing authority or giving a vote of confidence to a site. Google wanted a way for people not to pass that vote of confidence. And so because links have become so important, many sites automatically no-follow their links because they don't want people coming on there and spamming. So basically the social networks are saying, don't come here to try and get your authority from us. We're going to no-follow all the links. You just got to be real with us.
So it stops the spammers from doing silly things, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you're saying I could put a link on my website to your website saying, I vouch for you, but I could put a no-follow on there saying, but Google, don't give them rank.
Exactly.
Okay, not that I would do that, but that can easily happen. And how would you actually add a no-follow, technically?
Technically, it's a tag within the HTML of the URL tag. So it's a little tag. You can Google no-follow, and there'll be examples of how to do it, but it's part of your Ahref tag in your link.
So if I knew HTML, I could view source the page and actually check if my link had a no-follow on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you can use a bunch of Chrome plugins or Firefox plugins, and they'll actually outline links that are no-followed. And so that's a great way to actually see visually which links are no-followed.
Great. Okay.
another quick tip for social about building a brand page. So often it's quite hard to interact as a brand. People don't view you as a real person. You really want to be interacting on social as a person. So the way that you get around this, little workaround that we use and we recommend to clients, is get all your staff on the social networks with their own profiles and then have your brand page. Now your staff can go on 20 minutes, half an hour a day, whatever you want, interact, build their following. Then when your brand has something to share, your staff reshare it from the brand page. That way you're interacting as real people, but you're also building your main brand page. That's a really good tip. So social overload, this is something I hear from a lot of people about. They're basically confused and overwhelmed by all the social networks. You know, there's so many out there. Which am I going to be on? They all take up my time. What do I do? The first thing you need to do is think about your target market. Who are you trying to target? If you're trying to target the younger generation, maybe Facebook is where you want to be. If you're trying to target corporate, you know, older people, maybe you want to be on LinkedIn. So think about who your target market is and let that base your decisions. Also, you know, if you're going to be on multiple networks, we've got a tool here on the screen called Hootsuite, and that's going to dramatically cut down your time that you're going to spend posting. What it actually allows you to do is post once to multiple networks. So you're really speeding up that workflow by using tools like that. But look, don't go on a network if you're not going to be active. That's the one thing I'd say. It can look quite bad. If your last Facebook post was 10 years ago, it's not going to look really legitimate when people come to your network. So either jump in or leave it and let it be.
You know, Adriana, I find this a really interesting one. You know, and you mentioned earlier that you know, you probably wouldn't go to Facebook because it's got a younger generation, and I just think, you know, this space is so fluid. It's changing all the time. And, you know, I recently, I shouldn't admit this, but I turned 40, okay. And I use Facebook a lot. You know, my personal experience is that Facebook has almost become, for me, a news feed. Well, it is a news feed, but it's become one of my primary sources of news for, you know, things that my family and friends and what's happening in the broader community and world, you know, is going on.
Absolutely.
And the thing about Facebook is you know, it holds my engagement for periods of time when, you know, I'm standing in a queue or waiting for my lunch or something like that, and it's really holding me and got my engagement. I'm a higher demographic, and there are over 1 billion users on that platform. And when I see an ad come in, I mean, I know a lot of people get frustrated, but because they know kind of, you know, and this is the scary side of it, but they kind of know what your interests are on Facebook. They're throwing ads into my news feed which are actually relevant. And a creative ad which isn't too in your face and isn't doing the hard sell can actually be quite interesting and useful. And I think, you know, that there's this inflection point with Facebook where, you know, the kids are actually seem to be going away to the Instagrams and the Snapchats, and you've got a more mature audience who's really engaged. And so I'm a true believer that the right Facebook advertising can be really powerful. Yeah, that's just my opinion, but I think it's something that you've got to watch really closely, and it's changing.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's constantly evolving, so definitely keep up with the latest trends. As you said, some of the younger generation are actually moving away. Things like WhatsApp, and as you said, Snapchat and Instagram. So yeah, it's a great point you made, and I think it also leads well into the fact that, you know, you do want to be doing paid promotion on social networks. As you said, you can get really granular with your targeting. Now, paid promotion, like, just do it. If you're on Facebook and you're creating your own content, you've spent all this time and all this money creating the content, go that extra mile and promote it. It's a well-known fact that Facebook has dramatically culled the organic reach on your posts. So what that means in plain English is that if you have 100 followers and you post something, not all 100 are going to see it. In fact, it might be something more like 30 or 50. So it's great, you've got 100 likes on your page, but you can't actually reach them. So you can look at it, there's different ways to frame it, but at the end of the day, you know, you want to go towards paid promotion because it's going to give you that extra reach, and it's going to really get your campaigns off the ground. So just to wrap everything up, analytics, it's a huge area, but it ties everything together. So whatever you're doing, whether it's SEO, social, paid, it's all going to tie into analytics. And one of the questions, just not to ignore your question earlier, Anthony, about how much you should be spending on social. Well, if you're setting up goal tracking in analytics, you can actually be able to measure how much money you're making indirectly from social. So if we move on to that point straight away into goal tracking, what this actually allows you to do is in Google Analytics, you can track when a user meets a certain point in your site. So that could be when they download a PDF. It could be when they finish the checkout, they reach a thank you page. And what it'll allow you to do is actually say, okay, someone came from Google and then they bought a product. I can now see out of the 100 people that came from Google, how many did that. So I can actually gauge the effectiveness of the channels. Same for social, same for paid. And you really get an idea of where to put your money. So if you saw that Google Organic was giving you a load more converting traffic, pour more money into organic, it makes sense.
And I think that's the great thing about digital marketing, is that all activities are tracked through the entire revenue cycle. And if you have good marketing tools, good CMS, good CRM that are all integrated, it will show you, how to derive opportunity and revenue and influence that. And ultimately this is why the marketing world is kind of sold on the whole digital channel. We've got this clear, measurable result that's tied back to your marketing activity influence on revenue, and it helps you to promote within the organization for more budget, because you can actually take this upstream and actually show management what's working and what's not at a very granular level. So you're really becoming a profit revenue generating center rather than a cost center.
Yeah, and leading really well into this next slide, the fact that you can review the keywords that people are coming into your site from. So once again, being able to track how people are getting to your site. This is a great area in Google Analytics. If you haven't checked this out, definitely go in. It's going to tell you when people came from Google, if people came from paid, what keywords did they type in, and that'll allow you to go back to your SEO once again, the on-site optimization we talked about at the start, and make sure your titles, your H1s, make sure they're all optimized. If the page is bringing you some great traffic, make sure you've got all those elements down pat. Finally, looking at analyzing conversions, this comes back into the goal tracking. If you see that there's a whole load of traffic coming to a page but no one converts, you've got to ask the question, what's happening. So look at your checkout design. Are you putting up too many barriers and too many hoops for people to jump through? Definitely take a look at that. Use tools like crazyegg.com. This is a heat map tracking website. I'm sure there's a free trial, so you can have kind of like 30 days to play around. And that'll show you, if someone comes to your page and you see like a lot of users are clicking in a certain area but they can't click, or they're clicking away from the page, you get some great insights into the behavior of people on those pages. Even just for lo-fi testing, get someone that knows nothing about your website, bring them in, get them to use it, get your cousin to come in and see where they get stuck. And chances are that's where your users are also getting stuck. So analyzing conversions is a huge area to increase profit.
And then what we might do, guys, is move on to the 5 key takeouts. Because let's face it, it's one thing to invest an hour of your time listening to a webinar, but ultimately, these guys need to be able to do something when they get off today. So, what can we give them to do?
Yeah, so from my perspective as an SEO, ensure that all your pages are optimized for title tags, meta descriptions, and H1s. It's amazing how many sites don't do this, and it's just a huge, easy win that you can do today and get it done.
It's so basic, isn't it? I've seen sites have an instant transformation once people actually spend the time to do this properly. So it's definitely high up there. And obviously, to point 2, your CMS should facilitate this and make it easy. So certainly I've shown you a lot of techniques in the Elcom CMS where there's many years of insights from our customers, and it's not just a box ticking exercise. We've actually identified areas where you can have a shortcoming or a slip up, and we've tried to build in features to prevent that from happening and ensure that you get everything done correctly. So
yeah, I think the worst thing would be to have a CMS, have an SEO tell you need to change your title tag, and then realize that it won't let you, and having to then reinvest and redesign your whole website, and I've actually seen that with some clients. So it's a massive pain. So make sure from the start you can actually edit all these key SEO areas. Really big thing.
Yeah.
Thirdly, utilize social media to push your own quality content. That's quite a loaded point. So you're going to need the quality content to start with, and then you're going to need to push on social media. So there's a lot of work to do on that one simple point. Point number 4, set up goal tracking in Google Analytics. More importantly, set up Google Analytics if you don't have it. Number 1, do that. And number 2, get onto goal tracking. You're going to get some great insights into your users.
And yeah, on point 5, I mean, this is the area where you're going to get the business behind you and get your support and your budget if you can get the reporting engine humming and show how your activities are directly linking back to revenue. There's some really sophisticated tools that are available on the market, and in fact Elcom has integrated with a number of them as well as added features to our product to help you to do this. So talk to us and really work on that link.
Perfect. Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time today. Thank you both so much. I actually myself learned quite a bit from that, so I think I might go and put myself back in the beginner's basket from that first poll now. But what we might do, guys, I know there are a few questions that we didn't get to. We'll get in touch with each of you afterwards. Everyone, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening if you're over in the States.